The deal for Nasreddin Nabi is a very, very wise move by Kaizer Chiefs. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the 4 technical team members who are joining Nasreddin Nabi, their roles and their connections. We're also going to talk about what Dominic Isaacs has said about Kaizer Chiefs, something that you might agree with, but some of you probably will not, based on last season. We'll also talk about Fiston Mayele and what is happening with his price tag. It's interesting. Hello and welcome to Khosi Nation Fan TV. I am Pilo, I am your host, and this is where fans meet and talk about Kaizer Chiefs. Khosi Football Club. Let me do this experiment and ask people to subscribe before I even talk about content. I want to see if that's going to make a difference. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's talk about the first person, which is Nasreddin Nabi. He's been given the 2-year deal with an option to extend. And I love this structure of the deal, and I will tell you why. Because 2 years, right? You have a year to kind of, this is your first year. Second year, we're expecting you to win. You don't win, we don't extend in the option, right? But if he wins, then they have an option and then they can give him an extension. So I do think that this structure is safe enough, but it's also making sure that we don't lose a coach by just giving him 2 years. So I do think that it shows faith in the coach, but it's still not making us get tied to the coach, because one of the problems we had with the previous technical team is that after the first year, then it was difficult to pay them out because there was still 2 years remaining on their contract. But if Nabi doesn't perform in the first year, like does really bad, God forbid, then it's easy to release him with a year remaining in his contract rather than 2 remaining in his contract. Now, the other person in his technical team who is starting with Khalil Ben Youssef, because he's the one who's the first assistant. We thought it was Da Cruz, but it's Khalil Ben Youssef. And the reason for this is because Khalil Ben Youssef worked with Nabi at Yanga and he was working with him at AS Safar as well. So that is clear because now those two are much closer to each other than Da Cruz and Nabi. So I understand that. And obviously, Fernando Da Cruz now with his pro license, he's the second assistant. But the key thing about Fernando Da Cruz is among other things that are there in his career, is the fact that one of the things that he did was being a scout and a youth coach. You see, those two things are very key because being able to identify talent has been a huge problem for Kaizer Chiefs. So now bringing in someone who has done that specific job of being a scout is something that I would always say thumbs up to. Number 2, the fact that he has been a youth coach means he will understand how to integrate the players from our development and bringing them up to the senior team. And we're already seeing with all the players that have been with Kaizer Chiefs. So I will be interested to really see how Kaizer Chiefs does under this technical team. The third person in the technical team, well, really fourth, is obviously Usafi Majdi, I do not know if I pronounce it right. So Umachi is a strength and conditioning coach, but on top of that, he's also going to be an assistant. So in a way, Chiefs has a coach and 3 assistant coaches. So Usafi is basically, his main role is being the strength and conditioning coach. And his CV, he's worked for Raja, he's worked for Wydad Casablanca. So that's there. He's been in big teams, so this is not gonna phase him. The important thing also is that being there, what I like about him is not just the fact that he has worked with Raja and with that, because that is good because you are used to working with players with big egos, playing for big teams. But on top of that, the fact that he's not just a strength and conditioning coach, but he's also an assistant. That means in preparing players for games and stuff, he also doesn't just know the fitness aspect, but he also understands the, what's the word, the technical aspect and the tactical aspect of getting these players ready. So good job. And then the last one is Ilyas Muzoki. You know him, the goalkeeper coach. And I worked for Esperance. He's the one that does not have connections to everyone. Well, he does, because as much as he worked in Tunisia for Esperance, but he worked with Ben Youssef and Safi at Stade Tunisien in Tunisia. So they have all worked together, because remember, Uta Cruz also worked at AS Safar before Nabi. So they all know each other. So there's not going to be any glitches. A local coach. Now, let's talk about a local who has blasted. I think that's what I'm going to put on the thumbnail. No, on the title. It's funny because now you're here. Anyways, so Dominic Isaacs says that Kaizer Chiefs does not have captain material. He says that Chiefs does not need a poster boy. They need a captain. And a lot of people, when you say that, will get offended. What do you mean Chiefs does not have captains? And in his reasoning, when he's talking to Kickoff, he says that if you're a captain, the expectation on you is that you perform all the time. And he looks at how Chiefs did last season, and he looks at the players like Abo Kevin Msimango, Abo Titloko. He did not name them, but I'm mentioning them. Abo Mart. All of these guys had days off, like a lot of times. And you are like, Aibo, how come is the captain also not picking up Abo Toli during the derby, throwing hands in the air, and yet they're in leadership position instead of leading the team? That is what makes Dominic Isaacs say that Chiefs does not have captain materials, to a point that he thinks that they should go out and sign another captain, a person who's going to be a captain. To which I respond twofold. Yes, I did see Given Msimango down at times instead of lifting up the team. Ditlokwe naye at times. I've never saw him like lifting everyone up. It's true. And that only leaves Peterson as one who lifted people up, but also he had a lot of mistakes. So that also makes him go to the side. But let's not address the big elephant in the room here. Everyone was bad at Chiefs, and it's not that some players were bad and the captain was bad sometimes, and thus it doesn't deserve to be a captain. Everyone was just bad because the coach was just horrible. Yabona, if these players were all having bad games under a good coach, then I would say, yeah, definitely, you're a captain. You cannot be having a consistent run of bad games if you're a captain. So I would say and understand if that was the case. But that's not the case now, is it? The whole team was bad, and I think that we should cut the players some slack and hope that this time around they do perform. Which brings me to a question. Out of all the players that are there, Kaizer Chiefs, which one do you want to see being captain? There's Utitloko, obviously. There's Msimango. There's Peterson as well. And then there's Mart. I think that's about it. All the people who were captains last season. Out of those 4 players, or someone else out of the 4, who would you want to see being captain? Now let's talk about Fiston Mayele, the Congolese striker who's currently playing for Pyramids up there. Now, here's my thing. Yesterday, I made a video and I talked about his market value, because market value is based on what I see on the transfer market website as well, because they are basing it on form and all of that stuff. So his market value 11 million. But apparently, the value, according to Kickoff, the value that Pyramids are saying he's worth, they're saying the player is worth 22 million rands. I know his stats are saying 20 goal contributions in 35 games. There is 15 goals and 5 assists in 35 games. But is it worth 22 million? You see, yesterday we were debating if he's even worth 11 million. But double the market value. I think they are just playing hardball because they know that they signed a player last season and it was great for them in this season that just ended. So for them to then sell him for 11, they feel like it would be a bargain for the other team. I think it's too much, and I think we should look elsewhere. But what do you think? Do let me know down on the comment section below, and check out this other video from my other channel where I talk about South African football, and this one that YouTube thinks you might like. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember, Khosi, I'll pay you more.